A lot of times I'll have an area of interest, right? I wrote my fifth novel deals with mind control cults. So I went undercover into mind control cults, right? I submitted to cult testing to start to research it. And I knew there would be a guru, but I
Wow.
was looking and finding these little bits and pieces and taking this one from this one and this from someone I saw, and then something that someone, like a former professor had acted in a way that was creepy. And so I'll steal that part, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm sort of building all these scraps. I don't come in with a kind of higher order design. It always comes in the story, right? And then often once I'm a certain way in, I'm like, oh, the story is sort of about this thing that I'm dealing with that's bigger.
Yeah.
And then I can help to kind of, adjust the lens, the zoom lens to get better resolution on the characters and the dilemmas that might have been a little bit hazy on the first pass through.
It sounds like you have an immersive process. And I love the fact that you do your research. I actually talk about this. I always say that screenwriters, we have a superpower of all access. Because obviously you didn't do this in the cult, but I tell writers if they want to really understand what they're writing about, they need that authenticity, and then to interview a detective, interview somebody who works at a supermarket if that's what you're writing about, and really get in there. And if you tell somebody I'm researching a screenplay, all of a sudden their schedule opens up.
Hmm.
So I think it's fascinating that you went into a cult situation to really learn that. I respect that. Did you ever feel like at one moment you're like, "Ooh, I'm embedded too far into this"?
No, I didn't let them take me to a different location. And I'd done a good amount of research. I did a ton of psychological research
Okay.
leading up to it. So I made sure I didn't get somewhere I was going to lose the thread. The bigger challenge was in cults. Cults function by a process that's called pluralistic ignorance, where everybody's actually fairly miserable and has a good number of questions, but they can't talk to each other. They can only talk up a vertical social hierarchy, right? So
Mm,
um, think North
makes
Korea,
sense.
right?
Yeah.
And so part of it was I was pushing enough in some of these meetings to get the higher end people so I could talk to them and see what kind of scripts they were running on people. But if I talk too much, then you become labeled as a goat, and then they separate you out so as you don't infect all the sheep, right? So they need to remove you. And so it was a constant process of pushing.
Wow.
But I will add, you talked about doing research, and I've been that's been a big part of my process from the beginning. I've gone up and stunt airplanes. I've snuck onto demolition ranges with SEALs and blown up cars. I've done mixed martial
Amazing.
arts fighting. And a lot of that is to get myself in a position where we avoid cliche. That's always the goal, right?
Right.
And so, when I'm doing mixed martial arts fighting, and I don't mean to imply I do any of these things well, incidentally, but I'm willing to do them, right? The fool precedes the master. And if I can go out there and be an idiot or get injured, but ask the right questions and observe people who are brilliant at it and
Right.
experience it, I can choose certain telling details that then help carry the reader or the viewer across the suspension of disbelief, instead of me saying something that's a conglomeration of every other show or movie or book that we've seen, which all the readers and viewers have seen all those also. So
Yes.
it's a little bit like getting out there to discover things within myself. So I think that write what you know is the worst conceivable advice you could give a writer. Write what turns you on, write what thrills you.